what's the difference between men and women? Men don't need a club, they are a club. And I remember we were sitting in my living room and this just kind of sunk in. And I was like, damn, he's right. Like, do we like to talk in our free time about business opportunities? No. Do we, up until a certain amount of years, did we talk about money? No. Did we, do we have people, women in high places that will help us shape our career and push us up? No, probably not. Some did. Some did not, because there's not that many women in this like high level career network. And we're also socialized a little bit, some more, some less, to compete with one another. Right. About how we look, about what we do, how loud we are, how quiet we are. Like be polite, but also don't be too polite. Be pushy, but don't be aggressive. Like there's this constant
It's also conflicting as well.
Yeah, you're like going this conflicting path of not stepping on anyone's toes while forging a path to make a career and to become a leader.
Welcome to Ride to Success, the podcast that takes you on a learning journey to more productive, creative, and active life through the power of the bike. I'm your host, Pedro Couto Lopes. You can find me on LinkedIn under my own name. I will leave a link on the show notes. In today's episode, we chat with Dominique Lellek. She's the CMO of Alteos, she's a yoga teacher, and she is a passionate advocate for women visibility in cycling and beyond. In this episode, you'll learn 4 key things that Dominique talks about. First, why Dominique believes cycling is the most emotional form of mobility. Second, how her experience, both in work and in life, shaped her leadership journey. Third, what Women in Cycling in Germany is doing to change representation from the inside out. And last but not least, how feedback, yoga, and a strong peer network are transforming how she leads and leaves. So stick with us until the end of the conversation. And do me a favor, if you enjoy this conversation, make sure to follow Ride to Success wherever you listen to it. Welcome, Dominique, to Ride to Success. It's a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Brilliant. I wanted to start with a question that I hope will frame this conversation. And it's quite an in-depth question, but I wanted to kind of go at length and explore it with me. Is what does cycling mean to you?
Cycling, I think, is a very emotional form of mobility because it's you and your bike. As a child, it means freedom because you can go much further than before.
For sure. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And now it's a lot more flexibility because I ride my bike to work almost every day. I have a longer commute. And I think that it's making me healthier and a better person, to be honest.
It's 100% the fact that freedom is something that every child associates it with, like riding a bike, being able to get away from your parents and discover new places. And I'm interested in kind of diving a little bit deeper into the emotional aspect that you mentioned. And I wonder, like, how does that, for you, what does that emotion mean specifically?
It's the feeling of being active. Of being active. Like, I have a very busy day. Like, I have a lot of stuff I need to do. I live in Berlin, so it's not that I go out in the countryside every day in order to be active, get fresh air. And I can, with the bike, combine being active, fresh air, being outside. Now in the winter, helping my immune system, while on a practical path to work, for instance. Or to a yoga class, or to whatever appointment I have. So it's that feeling of I do something good for myself, combining it with the practical approach of getting from A to B. That's what I personally really like about cycling. And I think it's emotional because I think cycling is a form of mobility that seems to threaten a lot of people or other forms of mobility, because there's so much lobbyism around. Like when I look at like the image of cargo bikes, there's like constantly coverage about, you know, political topics, and then there's an image of a cargo bike representative to certain political views, which I feel like we just kind of leave it there for
Right.
now. But it seems to be a very emotional topic also to a lot of people outside of cycling. But for me personally, it's really about the combination of being outside, being active, doing something for my body, my mind, my head. I can like, you know, process things on my way to work and from work to home, that I wouldn't have if I sit on in a train or in a car.
Yeah. I mean, I completely resonate with that. With what you just said, because like the freedom, the movement, the benefits that come with riding a bike, you know, is a great way to stay healthy, stimulate your brain, think things over, and it is a shame that it can't, you know, cycling, riding bikes is sometimes used as a form of politicizing a subject and kind of weaponizing like against like car versus bike, and where we should be working together rather than against each other. And that's an unfortunate case of, I guess, in the world we live in. And we will explore that in a bit more detail later on. But, you know, I wanted to follow up on the kind of your trajectory, because you have been having quite a fascinating journey, professional but also personal. And I wanted to kind of understand and share with us, like, what has been kind of for you, in your perspective, what have been the kind of the pivotal moments that shaped your professional career?
You know, it's funny because what I immediately think about is like my professional path, if I had my way when I was 16, 17, would be to study archaeology, because I love history and I love archaeology.
Right.
But I did get the advice from my parents to maybe think about something where I make money. So
Yeah.
I did not go for archaeology, and I think there's no year passing where I do look at university programs, hoping that one day there's going to be a part-time archaeology study program that I can do.
Brilliant.
So far, I haven't really found one, but I did then move into economics, and I studied international business, and that was like then the first stage of what shaped my career. I had a really great professor. I studied in Dresden at the HTW, and Professor Lewis was an incredible mentor during the study program and also during my thesis, because he did a really good job in explaining to us the big picture and holistic business strategy. For instance, it's like measurement of being stuck in the middle. Like this can happen to businesses as well as a product, whether it's hardware or software, it doesn't really matter. If you try to please too many people, you wash out your positioning. And I remember every time we are having discussions about positioning or where do we move next, how do we grow, I have this like graph in my head that he showed us back then of the like stuck in the middle, like don't go there, like differentiate either through cost, through experience, through leadership, but don't get stuck in the middle. And that's like one of the guardrails I use a lot on a day-to-day. And for my first job, I moved to Chicago. I started there as an intern, and I worked for the German American Chamber of Commerce, and we consulted a lot of German businesses on their company build-up in North America. And so I got to have conversations with a lot of engineers, a lot of like technical pros. One of my product that I spent a lot of time on was a water analyzer that was analyzing water hardness. And one of the applications were boiler plants, because they're running not very energy efficient if you have very hard water, because then limescale builds up. So it's a whole chain. So that's the kind of projects I did. And I realized in the US, it's a lot about storytelling. And it doesn't matter whether you have a lifestyle brand or a water analyzer. You need to have a narrative. You need to have a story. And that's how I moved from business development into marketing, because I didn't have a story.
Right.
So I sat down with engineers and the people who are inventing those technologies, and also a lot of like automotive parts. And we were like, okay, but like, what's the benefit? What makes people want to buy your product? Because made in Germany doesn't cut it anymore.
Yeah, the emotional drive, yes.
Exactly. So that was definitely something that shaped my work a lot. Then moving into marketing. And then when I moved back to Berlin a couple of years ago, I got pulled into the startup scene, because it's Berlin. It was 2019, I think. At the time, all the jobs available were startups. I had no idea what I was getting into. And I realized like, oh, that's very different working style. Like I had to become more flexible. Everything was moving so fast. You know, and now also being at Alteos and being in a scaling company, like you just have to accept the fact that, you know, scaling never really ends. Like
yeah.
Always not enough, and it's always too much at the same time, and it's two contradicting things that you just have to kind of go with.
Yeah,
I'm not saying I'm doing it perfectly all the time, but this is just something you have to accept.
Yeah. I wanted to understand, like, you know, from that diverse experience working across different industries, working across different countries. You also did a bit of you studied, I believe, in Moscow at one point.
I did.
You know, moving to Chicago at such an early age, was there any lessons that you learned whilst traveling and working and studying that you still find helpful today? You know, that, for instance, that lesson about, you know, the shift of understanding the American culture, understanding that what resonates in Germany is not the same that resonates with the American audiences. What has been the kind of aspects that you kind of learned through that experience of studying abroad, working abroad, and kind of still apply today? And I ask this because, you know, from my personal experience, I've also moved countries to work, to study, and, you know, along the way, I've always learned something new, whether it is through the culture shock, whether it is through different working environments, you know, the language. There's also something that you take away from it, that you kind of implement and add into your experience of life.
There's a lot. So I moved abroad the first time after I did my high school diploma. So I was 18, and I actually really have to thank my mom for pushing me to do it, because I was so close to not go because of my boyfriend at the time. And she was like, no, there's no discussion. You're going. You wanted to do this forever now. It's all set up. You're going. And so I went to the US and I worked as an au pair. That was my first abroad experience. That was my first time I was on an airplane. I flew to New York. There were no smartphones. Like I had to call my parents from a paid phone in the middle of the night to tell them I made it. And I think for like a solid 3 months, I cried my eyes out because I was so homesick. And I don't even know, like my host family at the time, they were so gracious about it. But I think they were like, God, who came here? This 18-year-old girl just crying whenever we ask about her family. So this is something that shapes you, like this like abrupt enabling.
Yeah, definitely, 100%.
You're pushed out of your village, of everything you know. You're flying across the Atlantic Ocean, and now you're in the US. I ended up in Pennsylvania. It's not that I was in New York full time, but it made me more confident at whatever life throws at me. I'm gonna be fine somehow. Like there's always a path. And for many years, I was okay with just having my life in 2 suitcases. And that also teaches you something about, like, I have mementos of almost every trip I made, and every place I lived. And it gives you the peace of mind that whatever happens, you're going to figure it out. I studied in Moscow after university because I was still born in the GDR, but I grew up post GDR. Like, I'm in this classic after the reunification generation. And so I grew up with hearing a lot about Russia, but not knowing anything. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to go to Moscow because my university offered it. There were great scholarships available at the time. And so I did my winter semester there, which, had a whole other set of challenges. Moscow winter can be tough, but it also made me less afraid because, and also appreciative. What I experienced there, for instance, was a lot that there is a huge gap in Moscow in particular between poor people and rich people. And that was really hard for me to see and to watch it and to experience that. And when I came back home, of course, like, the German welfare system also has its bumps and it's not always perfect, but there is a certain stability and security that is provided. That is not the case in every country. And it's like things like that that you then start to realize that it gives you another perspective. And it helped me to stay curious, I think, and to just be okay to asking questions, learning new stuff, kind of figuring things out on my own. And I'm not really worried about planning ahead that much because, you just kind of become very open to change, which is funny because I'm still a very notorious project manager and I like to structure things. But there is this aspect.
But that is interesting because it might be a result of that, that kind of drastic change, from life with family, moving to the US to work as an au pair, and then studying abroad. That all adds up, and whether kind of with it, you need to build a bit of resilience to the emotional toil you mentioned about crying whenever my family was mentioned, which is natural. It's a natural reaction. You feel homesick, and and kind of also having the kind of the attitude as well to go out, find new opportunities, discover new places, take those scholarship to go to Moscow. Not everyone has the mindset or the mental fortitude to do those things because it requires a level of openness. It requires a level of flexibility, of seeking out new experiences, and I think it enriches then a person's life for sure.
I had a huge role model, like one of my best friends, Sarah. We went to the same high school. She kind of forged a lot of the path also, because she was the first in my circle to do all of those things, to go abroad, work abroad, study abroad. We ended up in the same study program. And, I think the importance of role models, that you have someone who shows you that this is possible, even wherever you come from, whether you have money or not, if you come from a village or a city, like your inner circle, like that anybody can do that. That's really something that was role modeled for me a lot.
Yeah, I wanted to also touch upon that aspect of role model because it actually is quite important having, whether it is a role model, whether it's a mentor, that helps to provide kind of guidance or like directions, or simply lead the way and kind of trailblaze a path that you wouldn't think possible before. And I want to tie this into, is these role models you mentioned, has there been any that kind of you have identified through riding bikes through cycling, because at some point you transition from business development, analytics to marketing, and at some point you transition into kind of the cycling ecosystem. So how did cycling came about? Because obviously the passion, the interest was always there, but perhaps was there a moment or something that triggered you, or was it just perhaps even sometimes for me it was moving to a city that was much bigger and kind of that triggered the interest in cycling and moving from A to B as a mode of transport. So what was that experience for you?
So I had actually lost cycling for a long time because I grew up on the countryside. You save money for your driver's license. You spend a ridiculous amount of money as a young person to be able to drive a car.
Yeah.
And then, it's not cool to cycle when you're a teenager. Like maybe it is now. We should probably work on that. So it's a little bit cooler. But at the time, like nobody took a bike. It kind of stopped at some point. I don't know the exact age, but and then when I lived in Chicago, they had a new sharing system. It's called Divvy, and they started building up stations with bikes all around the city. Right. They started to put up bike paths, and my friends and I, we were like, well, we can take the bike. We don't have to take an expensive cab or an Uber. Like we can just bike. And that's and I had a commute at some point where I went to a workout in the morning that wasn't really on the path with the bus. And then I had to go to the office. And that's when I started to get back into cycling. I realized, okay, like whatever happened to cycling, but this is actually really nice and it's very convenient. It was super easy to sign it up. You had stations everywhere. And then when I came back to Berlin, my partner at the time really forced me to get a bike. And I was like, you need to cycle, like you're not taking the train. And so I had this bike and I started to bike again. And it was much more fun than taking a crowded S-Bahn or underground railway or buses.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's how I started to get into it now. And with professionally cycling, I started at Alteos 3 years ago. We do bike insurance. So we work with a lot of bike companies. And that's how I started to get into like the bike industry a lot more than before, because I was definitely new to insurance and I was completely new to the bike industry at the time.
Yeah. I mean, I can, that experience kind of completely resonates with me. It's just living in London, a huge city, going from A to B to work and taking the tube or the underground, it didn't become very attractive after a few months of being in a crowded space. So kind of cycling was that opportunity to explore, stay fit, stay healthy, and just use that moment to actually do something productive to my own benefit. So yeah, totally resonates. So that story with my own experience.
And I think every company like should encourage their people to bike to work, because my sick days have definitely decreased, because especially in the winter time now, if I were to sit in the crowded space, I would get sick all the time. Like those tiny little colds that you just keep getting, especially the Berlin winter, right? It's like gray, wet. It's like not great weather. But so far, through cycling, I'm just much more resilient. And I'm not even putting myself into crowded places anymore.
Yeah. And I also wanted to understand, because you are also part of the kind of the founding force, the founding team behind Women in Cycling Germany. And at what stage were you part of the kind of the founding team? Was it with your kind of new job at Alteos, or was this even before that? just to kind of just to place that
Yeah.
in a timeline.
So I was not 100% a founding member. Those were
Okay.
3 women that trailblazed that path for us. I got first in touch with women in cycling Germany at the time when I joined the Eurobike networking breakfast in 2023. It was also my first Eurobike experience. I had up to then, but also at Eurobike, felt like a lot of the spaces and rooms were definitely more male dominated. I remember seeing a panel with Mareike Rauhaus, who's the head of communication for Nextbike, which is also a bike sharing system. And I was like, damn, like she's the first woman I saw on a panel, and she did so great and like talked about so bluntly about certain topics. And then I saw that this breakfast is happening. I went there and I felt like someone. I was like, oh, there's all the women. Okay, great. Like there's women in the industry. They're all gathering here. And I immediately felt very comfortable because it's a very relaxed and chill community. It's not about where you came from. There was no judgment that I hadn't been in the bike industry for 5-10 years. Like I was new and I was completely accepted, which I have to say is not, I'm not taking that for granted. And then in January 2024, they hosted the first annual meeting, which is now going to happen again on January 30th, 2026. We're now calling it a summit because the format has evolved a lot. But I joined there. There was an open space to bring in topics, and I got up and was like, okay, let's talk about communication. And then there was a bunch of other women that were also like, okay, how can we communicate women in cycling? How can we create visibility? And we formed a working group that is active until now, and started to put together a brand, a design, communication over LinkedIn, content. Then Angela Franke from University Kassel, with support of the ZIV, conducted a survey about in which spaces women are present and represented. And we kind of went from there, it just kind of happened. And there are a lot of women spearheaded by Isabel Eberlein that are just doing an incredible job on a voluntary basis. Like we're all doing this on our free time to bring visibility of women in the German bike industry.
Yeah. And I mean, I've kind of followed the journey of women in cycling in Germany. I've interviewed Isabel Eberlin this year, and it shows that kind of the blueprint of other chapters that are opening in other countries, and that is great to see. And I wanted to explore a little bit more how because you it seems from what you said that you have played a pivotal role in like developing the communications and how to contextualize so that it would come across as relatable and inclusive and bring more women into the cycling industry. And from what you've said as well, everyone gives their spare time to work on this. It's become a work of making sure that everyone is welcome, every woman feels welcome and included in a space that often is male dominated. And I wanted to understand, how is this community grown, and what have been the kind of the strides and the highlights that for you?
So I think it was incredible how quickly our followership on LinkedIn picked up. We have over 1,600 followers. We have a private group with about 600 women where we can exchange ideas, search for partnerships, post ideas, updates, events, speaker opportunities. So that activity is great. What is also nice is that we're really trying to combine all the areas of where women in the bike industries are, whether it's really businesses or whether it's public administration, infrastructure planning, as well as sports. So we really try to create an umbrella where everybody has the playground to build something from the ground up. We have regular lunch talks that Gina, the CEO from Cargo Bike Gets, is organizing, which are incredibly useful because they talk about how to lift each other up, how to become part of advisory boards, how to raise their voices internally, how to push for female representation at companies, and to provide tools. But we also try to make panels more diverse. Like anyone who's hosting a congress or event can contact us and ask us, I have this topic. Which woman do you have in the network to talk about it? Because this year has been quite still disenchanting. Like constantly panels that are all male, even though there are women at this event who can probably speak about it as well. But it's, like if I hadn't seen Mareike at Eurobike on this panel, like that did something to me. I was like, oh, okay, we have space here. Like women have room. Then I went to the networking breakfast. I was like, oh, okay, we're a community. Like, oh, and I get to help build that community. And we're supporting each other. We're not just sitting there drinking coffee. Like, we're not like quota women of like, oh, we're like glossing over a pink, pretty face. Like I experience this network as being incredibly competent and capable women who want to push forward, who want to change structures in their companies or organizations in order to shape the future. And I think
100%,
it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I completely see that, and that's also why I wanted to bring this up, because one is like you're constantly having to fight bias, inequities in society, but also in the cycling industry, and there's always been room for improvement, and there's been a target of getting more women into the leadership positions, into the cycling industry at large, and how close are we to getting to like a 50% like split? I just wanted to caveat this, because like it's not the when I say ask this question, I ask from a place where men in the cycling industry also have a role to play in kind of bridging that gap. So I'm not saying like, oh no, this is your responsibility. So I just wanted to kind of contextualize the question.
Yes. No, absolutely. I think allyship is very important. I mean, we know, according to the data we have, that top management positions, 30% of them are covered with a female identifying person. So we lack 20% to get to 50-50, which some people would say this is not even that bad. But there are glass ceilings that we are coming to realize more and more. Like when you look into certain areas like production, but also bike product development, sales, a lot of that is much lower than 30%.
Yeah.
It's more like 16 to 25%. And it's crazy when you think about that women are more than 50% of the target audience of who's buying the bike.
Yeah, and most often they have the most buying power within a household, for instance.
And I think making the bike industry more inclusive will shape communication, will shape the image, will shape the buyership to become more female, which is an economic opportunity, in my opinion.
Yes.
Just from a personal experience, if I think about what I'm ready to spend on a bike, on bags, on gear, like damn, I'll be your perfect customer. Uh, and I think this is something that will benefit everyone. And one of the structural topics, for instance, we're facing is that for a lot of advisory boards, you need to be part of the executive management. So there are advisory boards that won't take you if you're not in the executive management. Then there are other advisory boards that won't take you if you aren't already part of an advisory board. So it's a full circle of blockage because a lot of women, even if they're on higher positions, are not part of the executive management. So we're going full circle of not being able to join any of those natural power habitats where a lot of the big decisions are being made regarding the future of the bike industry. We have also started a process and conversations about bringing more women into leadership positions, into advisory boards and committees. And what I want to be clear at, because this is often discussed, is nobody has the intention of pushing away any men. Like, just make the seat, just add another seat, make the table a little bit bigger. And that's all we're asking. Like, it's not either or. It only works if we're together. And I think that's a very important aspect that often gets overlooked, that, you know, we create inclusive environments for women at this point, which may seem uninclusive for people who are not female in the industry. But, and I think we're getting into this a little bit later, is like, women are not a club yet. We need to become a club. And this is something that we are working on. And ideally, at the end of this path, we might not even need Women in Cycling Germany anymore, because women are naturally part of this invisible power network. And then, you know, we're all together and happy and driving in the bike industry and any industry at this point. This is not
exactly
exclusive to the bike industry at all.
That for sure. I mean, I think the work you're doing is necessary, because it's proven that having more women at executive level, board level, leadership in general makes a company more profitable, because it brings more diverse voices, it brings a new perspective, different way of thinking, and then, you know, specifically in what you mentioned, product development, sales, you know, you need to have women in those positions, because they are also the people that need to shape the products that go to market. It can't be men doing that to a female target audience. So that's a kind of something that definitely needs to change, and it is changing, but not at the pace that it should have been, and that's probably because of the, you know, kind of the society bias and kind of how society has been formulated, and that comes from a place of, you know, the man perspective of how society has been structured, and kind of that is now it's trying to break that down into with strong women coming and pushing back on that, and that's kind of that's an important role that Women in Cycling Germany, but I think all the chapters have that are having an active role in doing that. And you mentioned about, I wanted to touch briefly on the club. What did you mean by that? Woman as a club? I just wanted to kind of understand a bit more that concept.
So a friend of mine, she worked in the finance industry for a bunch of years, and she and her colleagues wanted to start a women's network within that company.
Right.
And she went to their male boss asking for financial support so they can put together event formats, etc. And his answer was, at some point in this conversation, and she shared it with me after, you know, what's the difference between men and women? Men don't need a club. They are a club. And I remember we were sitting in my living room, and this just kind of sunk in. And, and I was like, damn, he's right. Like, do we like to talk in our free time about business opportunities? No. Do we, up until a certain amount of years, did we talk about money? No. Did we, do we have people, women in high places that will help us shape our career and push us up? No, probably not. Some did. Some did not, because there's not that many women in this like high level career network. And we're also socialized a little bit, some more, some less, to compete with one another.
Right.
About how we look, what we do, how loud we are, how quiet we are. Like, be polite, but also don't be too polite. Be pushy, but don't be aggressive. Like, there's this constant, like,
It's also conflicting as well.
yeah, you're like going this conflicting path of not stepping on anyone's toes while forging a path to make a career and to become a leader.
Yeah.
And you do that by putting in a lot of work, by being ambitious, by working harder than perhaps others, by having to negotiate harder. You're not perhaps immediately up for line for promotion because you're at a certain age and they're worried you are having a baby soon. And then, then she'll be out and what are we going to do? Da, da, da. There's like all this like context that's partially society, partially biased, partially structural. And you kind of navigate through that as a woman. And when she shared that quote with me, I was like, yeah, we need to become a club. Not just the club, because there are a lot of clubs, right? There's a ton of networks, there are exclusive groups. Every industry has them. They're all segregated. They're all doing their own thing. But we all share one goal, which is participation. Again, not to push anyone aside, but to have a seat at the table. And we need to get rid of that like ingrained competition, comparing ourselves with one another. And if you are a group and you fight for very few seats at the table, there's automatically creates this friction.
Yeah.
And in the past generations, a lot of the women also did not use their power to help lift other women up. It's like this famous like queen bee syndrome, like the one woman makes it and they're so forged into like the male way of doing things and they're not really lifting other women up. And it's all these like soft factors that I personally believe in. Like, once we start to trust each other and start speaking openly, no matter where we come from, no matter what company we work at, and realize that this is the one thing we all have in common. And it helps our careers, it helps business, it helps growth. We can put together great formats. We can complement each other. Then we don't need a club, because then we are a club.
Exactly. All right. Yeah.
That's kind of, and we're part of a club. Like, there's no more male, women, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's equal participation.
Yeah. That's kind of that's kind of you do kind of see that play out in several industries, in sometimes in society at large, like the all man club or male all clubs, and kind of that kind of that environment, that world is closing doors to other people opening up, or to coming in, and having that kind of environment is not conducive to being more inclusive, opening more doors. But I guess that aspect of having the mindset to helping each other out, or like through a network, through a group that can help prop each other up, introduce other opportunities. And that, you coined it the club, but it doesn't have to be specifically. I would imagine it doesn't have to be specifically a club. It can take many shapes. But the aim is to get Sorry?
An invisible net.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a very good point, and I think um, as kind of trying to be allied to get more women in the cycling industry, to get more representation, more voices from women.
There is this unconscious bias. Like
Yeah, of
we're
course.
humans. We're like naturally feeling comfortable with people that look like us, talk like us, And so I think if you raise awareness to your own habits and like, am I inclusive? Am I doing stuff like questioning yourself? Like, because I have that too. Like, just because I'm female doesn't mean I don't have an unconscious bias. Of course, I have that exact same thing. I'm just not at this point maybe in a position of power where it really affects an entire structure or ecosystem. But when you are in a position of power, you need to be aware of your unconscious bias and perhaps your own preferences, creating an uninclusive environment.
Yeah, exactly. And I wanted to kind of also bridge here because, as the chief marketing officer at Alteos, you also have a key strategic role in kind of the direction on how the products that you're selling comes across to both men and women in the different stages of their lives. And I wanted to understand, how do you see the work you do at Alteos and the kind of insurance as an industry within the cycling industry? What role does that play on all the combinations in kind of welcoming more women into active mobility, into cycling, into a sustainable lifestyle?
I would say that with insurance alone, it's in its own a very equal product because there's no difference between your gender.
Okay.
You have something you want to insure, which is in this case your bike, and you want to be protected. I think in communications way, I think the teams that make decisions need to be as diverse as possible. So if you're looking around and you're making decisions in a room and it's very homogeneous, you're probably not making a full circle decision with
exactly.
everyone's perspective. So what I really appreciate about Alteos, like this is the first time I was appointed CMO. This is my first C-level position. I had never done it before. Our CEO, Sebastian, took a huge leap of faith, in my opinion, taking me on because, like you would imagine you would take someone in this position who has industry experience, at least insurance experience. And I came from a completely different background. But he decided, no, we want to be different and we want different perspectives at the table. And he had decided for Alteos, together with the leadership team at the time, to become more diverse. It's part of our culture. We have a very great group that is working on quarterly topics and events to create awareness for disabilities, for unconscious bias, for mental health, and to really talk about these topics, but not like top down, but like organically, growing within like everyone in the team. And I think that what really shapes also the way we communicate or bring products life, because we're a very international company. Like our main language here is English. Meetings are often held in English, which I think is very unique for an insurance business operating in Germany. And we have people from over 25 countries in our team. And that alone creates an environment where I personally feel incredibly comfortable because we can ask questions. And I remember in my first 2-3 months, I think, one of my colleagues came to me and he gave me feedback because we have a feedback as a gift format. where
Very good.
you sit down with someone, you give them feedback, and that person takes it or tosses it. There's no discussion or anything like that.
Wow.
And
Okay.
he said to me that he really appreciates that I ask all the questions at the risk of seeming uninformed, but I still ask the questions, right? And I
Yeah.
thought, okay, at first I was like, do I seem uninformed? Probably, because I didn't know much at the time, and I still don't claim to know everything. So I ask questions all the time. But I loved that openness. And
Yeah.
now over the last couple years, like a lot of people sat me down and gave me feedback, which I think, is incredibly valuable, especially when you're in a
Yeah.
leadership position, because
Mm.
in other places, maybe people are afraid to talk to you or to tell you something negative or bad. And I'm sure that there's plenty of people that are not feeling comfortable telling me everything they want to know, but this is
Of course. Yeah.
public. Please come to me and tell me and give me that feedback, because I think that's what creates inclusive leadership eventually. Like the fact that my team is mirroring my behavior and is flagging what I should be doing differently or what could be done better or where I have a blind spot is super important. And I have that at Alteos, and I'm really grateful for that,
Yeah.
because it makes me a better person and leader.
I think I think it's very valuable. Yes, as a culture, as a work culture, having that the the culture of giving feedback, actively giving feedback is, I think, is valuable, especially as a leader in the C-suite and the managerial level. Not always you'll have people come to you and give you like feedback. And this, when I mean feedback, is not to, it's like actual critical feedback that can have value. And sometimes feedback can really touch a nerve and it feels very personal. But I think it's then you need to digest that feedback, and so to see the value in it, attach your personality, your sense of worth to it, and I think that's critical.
Oh, yeah, it can be very uncomfortable. Sometimes
Yeah.
home first and just be like, okay, I am going to take this and look at it tomorrow because I am humanly not possible right now for me to take this on.
Yeah.
But then eventually, once you sleep on it, reflect on it, you're like, yeah, you know what, you are actually right, even though it pains me to say so.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
yeah,
precisely.
it's tough sometimes, but
Hmm.
I still like it. It's, like I did a yoga training a couple of years ago, and one of the principles is to sit with the uncomfortableness. Is that a word? Like to be
Yeah,
okay
it
with
is. Yeah.
being uncomfortable and to listen to your body and acknowledge that uncomfortable feeling, even though you're like, oh, I really don't want to be there. Anyone who ever did a hip opening class will know what I'm talking about. You just want to get out of that pigeon pose as quick as possible because it's not comfortable, but you just sit in it, you breathe through it, you're digging into it, and then you realize, oh, I feel so relaxed afterwards. And I think this is the same when you're given constructive feedback that might not be something you want to hear. Like, again, we're just humans.
Exactly. Yeah. We all have feelings, and that comes with a whole sets of challenges. But I
Yeah.
wanted to touch on you mentioned being, taking course to lead yoga as a yoga teacher, I believe. And it's interesting that you mentioned that aspect of being comfortable with being uncomfortable, or being in uncomfortable positions. And I wanted to kind of like transition this into a kind of the kind of, how does that experience, your experience as a yoga instructor, teacher, that kind of mindfulness that comes with practicing yoga, transitions or transfers into, your role in a leadership position. How is there like a synergy between those two?
I think there is. I will say I am on a path. I have not figured out leadership 100% yet. I will probably never figure out yoga 100% because it's a lifelong journey. Mindfulness is a great concept that is really hard to achieve. Like personally,
Yeah.
I am struggling with it all the time, and I don't want to give anyone the impression that I'm like, la la la, I'm just sitting here and it's all great, da 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 da, and doing this, doing that. Like, no, it's fucking hard.
Yeah,
And
100%.
and I do it sometimes great, and sometimes I am not great at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's to be patient with yourself.
Yeah.
Like me personally, I've always tried to overachieve because this is how I'm wired. Like I like to push things forward. I like to build stuff. Like I want to create something that has impact. And that's not easy for a person like me to be mindful, which is I think why I went into yoga training, because I wanted to find a way for me to balance my ambition by also staying sane and healthy and mindful, I guess, of my limits, because I would constantly go and push over my limits, which is not really a very sustainable or healthy way. And I think what I'm trying to do also with being a leader is on a personal level to be aware of it and to pull back whenever I feel like, okay, now this like overachiever, ambitious person is taking over and she needs to stop. And to also, the more relaxed I am, the better that my energy is that I bring into the company and into my team.
Yes.
Like if I don't get this great all the time, like if I am stressed and I am anxious, like this will immediately have an impact somehow without me probably realizing.
Yeah,
And so
100%. Yeah. We do speak with our bodies as well, with our body language. It's sometimes like you can say more through how you express yourself, like without verbalizing it, than with words. I'm guilty of that.
Yeah.
But I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm guilty, but that's a way that's the way I came across a lot of the times. My expressions, the way I come across with my body, is supersedes my words.
Too. I was told once by a peer that I should work on my poker face. And I'm like, yeah. But then also that's me. Like I am who I am. Like I have certainly trained a poker face where I feel like it's absolutely necessary. But I've also at some point decided, okay, I am a very passionate person. I'm very much connected with my work and what I achieve through it. And that also means that sometimes I am maybe a little bit more emotional, or you can tell it in my face. And I think there is also a bias towards at least women, like I've seen it in the past and experienced it, where this might not be welcomed, to a certain level. And I've had a lot of people tell me that I should be more neutral. But if I become neutral, then I become eventually indifferent. And this is definitely something that I'm working on with my coach, because I need to define for myself what is neutral and how can I combine it with still being passionate and putting in the work. And while realizing at the same time that being ambitious and being an overachiever, it does not serve me as a leader. At least not fully. Like it had brought me to a certain point in my career because I put in the work and I worked hard, but it does not help me being a great leader, because I did have the experience where I overwhelmed my team. I was too unclear about delegating or bringing together a roadmap, forging goals. And this is all stuff that I really learned at Alteos over the past couple of years. Through feedback sessions, my coach, Sebastian as our CEO, being an incredible mentor. And I wish that for everyone, it doesn't matter whether women or men, to, when you step into a new role, to just do it, to ignore a little bit your fear, and to be allowed to make mistakes and people still having your back. Because I think that's part of the growth process. And I think it's very important. And yoga has definitely helped me through it by being active physically, but to also do meditation and to do breathing exercises to calm down situations that are stressful. And so I found it very valuable. And once I was in that training, and one of the girls I was doing the training with, she was like, we had this conversation whether we should put yoga on our LinkedIn profile.
Right.
And she was like, oh, I don't know. Maybe people find me being esoteric or spiritual, and maybe they think like I'm maybe they don't want that. And I was like, damn, no, I'm just going to put this on my LinkedIn profile because it's part of me. It's part of who I am.
Exactly.
It's part of my path. Like, anyone who doesn't like it, okay, fine. Like, get to know me first and then you can decide. And she was like, yeah, but I think like maybe if you're C-level and maybe then you can do it. And I'm like, well, I'm CMO, so probably I can just do it and see if anyone comments on it. And so far, nobody has commented on it, at least not knowing that I am too spiritual or, can't do my job because I like yoga. But
I think that would come from a place of ignorance if you receive those kind of comments.
Yeah, I mean, it's also fine. Like, I don't force anyone to do yoga or think about it more than once. But I eventually was like, no, we're putting this on our LinkedIn profile because it's just fine. It complements our work. It makes us better. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, it's a great way of looking at it because you are gaining something from it. That also helps with personal life, but also work life, and whether it is that finding that more clarity, understanding yourself a bit better, and kind of and learning about kind of that situations that make you uncomfortable, because that's as part of, well, I don't know a lot about yoga, but from a work position, you have to deal with situations that sometimes you don't want to be part of or make you uncomfortable, and kind of having the headspace and the clarity of knowing kind of your limits and your flaws, but also your strengths, gives you a bit more of an edge to make the better decisions, I think.
Yeah. It doesn't make you unfailable, but I've really experienced it helping me.
Yeah. One of the things that I wanted to ask as well is, you have a very rich experience, like you have learning from different people, traveling to different places, working in different settings, and that provided you with a rich plethora of knowledge, really. And I wanted to understand if there's anything that if you had an opportunity to speak to your younger self, maybe when you were in high school or maybe younger even, looking back in the window into, if you had a window into the future, what advice would you give to your younger self?
That you will be fine. You will be fine. Brilliant. You will be fine. No matter what happens, you will be fine. And I guess to really trust into your own capabilities, because it's there. You learn. If you don't know something, you learn it. If you screw it up, you learn from it. When you fall down, you get up again. Like,
Exactly.
It's okay to make mistakes. I guess that should be the one thing that I should have told myself more. That it's okay to make mistakes, and that you can only learn from them, because I'm naturally very mistake averse. I don't like making mistakes. But
Is that because you consider yourself overachiever, or like?
yeah, I think so. Like personally, I did experience praise when I do things right, when I have good grades, when I'm, behaving well. Like that stuff definitely shapes you. And I think I took that then also into my professional behavior of being afraid of mistakes, because what happens if I do something wrong? I had to grow comfortable with that, that making mistakes is fine. It's okay. Like the world is not going to go down. We're not doing open heart surgery. At least I am not. And this is still something I need to remind myself a lot.
Yeah.
And I am being reminded of it every once in a while. And yeah.
It's part of I think learning about the world, learning about yourself. I definitely can speak from my experience. Mistakes are an integral part of who I am. Making mistakes helps me learn, helps me to see what things work and what doesn't work, and as put me on a trajectory where I sit where I am now. I could say, well, I definitely didn't need to go through those mistakes in the past to get me where I am now. I could easily skip that part of my life, but at the same time, they were somehow formative, and that's the pivot. And then with to the benefits of feedback, the experience that you have at Alteos about feedback as a gift, and I think that's as a great way to really to build a culture that builds, kind of eliminates the kind of a little bit the fear element of giving feedback, of not giving almost permission for people to make mistakes, and knowing that that is part of the process of the journey, not like recklessly, but in a way that helps you grow, helps the company grow. I think is all necessary.
Yeah. Which like sometimes it's tough, like because we are also building a business. We're scaling up. So sometimes there's very little room to make mistakes, and we constantly have to balance that, right? Because there's time pressure, or certain things that need to get on the road, and you work sometimes at a high pace, and then you need to be, I guess this is a good reminder for myself right now, like you need to really then also still communicate that mistakes can happen, and that either way will be fine, and it's going to be okay still. And because like what I've experienced when I took over the team for the first time and also hired people, my mistake averseness was not very nurturing or helping. Like I drove everyone crazy for a while, because I wanted to absolutely make sure we're on point. And that definitely also had to do with my insecurity of being in this role for the first time. And I guess to anyone who is in that journey, like you can evolve from that. Like if you put in the work and you're, searching for like your inner truth in a way. You can figure that out.
Yeah, and that's where sometimes coaches, mentors, a network, a support network, come into play, because if you have that additional help from people that you trust, that also plays a huge part.
For instance, like with there are a lot of women in cycling where we talk about this very openly.
Yeah.
And I've never had that before in that format, and it's amazing. And I encourage everyone to open up, because we talk about fuck-ups all the time and the struggles we're having. And, when you are in a leadership position, at some point you need a base to talk about stuff. Because you're also just a human being, and if you care, you want to make things better, but you need the exchange with people. And
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I wanted to kind of now to round the conversation with a question that I asked of all my guests. And I know we touched a little bit on it already, but I think this gives you the opportunity to kind of put it succinctly. What does success mean to you personally?
Success to me is when I have a sense of creating impact.
Yeah.
Like, it can be positive or negative, but you learn something from it.
That is refreshing to hear. Yeah.
Sometimes things go wrong. You can have ideas that suck and they don't play out. So you may have still created impact, but not in the way you want. But I like to create impact. That's what drives me a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's I think that shows through the conversation about the strong purpose that you have, and that transfers or like creates an impact in the teams you work with, or the people, women in cycling. I think that's having an impact comes at, I think, from where I stand, comes in touch with having a strong purpose and strong beliefs, and that kind of. And that most of the times that the positive impact will outweigh the the negative one.
Yeah.
So I wonder now I wanted to give you a closing question, and it's part of a tradition I started on the podcast, where every guest leaves a question to my next guest, not knowing who they are. Mm-hmm. And the question that was left for you is the following. So I'll read it out. So the guest asked you this. I would like to know, what are the 3 major wins or micro wins that you had in the last month?
Okay, let me think. Professionally, personally, is there a rule?
No, there's not a rule. It's an open-ended question.
So I think professionally, one of the wins we had in the past month, which particularly is my team, me personally, but also Alteos as a whole, is that we put out our first Rad report. Like, it's a study around, which is targeted at bike shops and retail. And we also created a bike talk format where we talk about the results with people from our network, and it has gone incredibly successful. Like, we're a team who had been working on this over months. Like, it was not easy to do this. And we have been brave enough to move into thought leadership. And I think that's a big success that we created.
What were the benefits of the RAD report that you just mentioned? What impact that did it have with the bike shops that you were the target audience?
That we're discussing a lot of the things. Like, it was a dual study. We asked questions to people who own bikes about what they expect, where they inform themselves, what kind of service they appreciate when they are about to buy a bike. And we asked the same questions to people working in bike retail. Where do you think your customers, potential customers, inform themselves? Which services do you think your customers value? And what is really cool is that there's a lot of room for growth. And because, if everything was already out performed, everything would be already optimized to the max, then that would mean, we're done. Like, there's nothing more we can do. Like, actually, Sebastian, our CEO, just said that the other day to me. But in the report,
so what did stood out most of that? But coming from that, the RAD report, what stood out most for you as like something, a trend or something that's like a
Yeah.
disconnect maybe, or whatever it was?
So one of the results was that 27% of end customers inform themselves on the bike brand website.
Right.
So if you look at it from a customer journey perspective, a quarter of your customers are with a brand already. How can you guide them over to the bike retail? How can you create that journey seamlessly that it immediately goes into the right channel? Instead of being disconnected, bike manufacturer on one hand, retail on the other hand, there's no connection. You lose in the journey 25% of those end customers that are already on the brand's website.
Right. Yeah, that's a lot.
and a second one is the as an information base, like how important the channel YouTube is becoming.
Right.
Because when you ask, like we can split it by age. Like the Gen Z already prefers and informs themselves by 23% on YouTube when they want to find out more about bikes. And how to create that journey, like, because the initial motivation of doing the study is really, hey, like the market is clearly struggling. Bike shops, have a tough year, had a tough couple of years now after COVID. And there's what's coming out of the conversations we're having with them is where I have little time, possibly little money to invest. And what we try to find out is, where is your money best invested in? Your money and your time. Like what channels could be worth for you? What do customers expect in terms of services? How much do you offer already? And maybe like the trial ride, like that was a big disconnect. It was not top of mind of the people we asked in bike retail, but it was very much top of mind from end customers. So perhaps that service that you already offer, it's so natural to you, you don't even think it's worth mentioning anymore. Make sure you mention it somewhere on your website, on your Google profile, wherever you are present. Like tell people that, hey, you can try the bike out, no problem.
Interesting.
Sometimes it's little things like that.
But it does show that there is room for improvement, whether it is through, I mean, that, I wouldn't, Gen Z, younger generations will look for social media, YouTube to find about the bike, learn more about the bike.
And it's interesting, they're not that much on social media, because we asked of
oh really? Oh wow, okay.
Instagram. I think they are in the awareness channel, but we asked specifically information behavior. So it's more consideration channel. And social media across all boards had very little preference on the end customer side, and much more importance on the bike retail side.
Right, interesting.
It was actually like, because we thought, at least Gen Z is going to be on TikTok trying to get information there. Like, no, they go on YouTube.
Interesting. Yeah, visual, I guess. Yeah. Okay, interesting. Oh, there you go. Something thought leadership from Alteos.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yes.
So what were the other 2 wins or micro wins in the past month that you experienced?
I think another win that I am observing is just how great my team is working together with one another. It's really rewarding and amazing, the output and how productive we are as a team. And I think they're doing an amazing job. And every time I see something evolving and being built or going live or happening, like that happens on almost a weekly basis, I'm like, damn, you're good. Like whether it's AI, using new GPT assistants or new tools, to really building a kick-ass performance campaign where we overachieved our targets by so much that, we're all like, wow, amazing.
Wow. Very good.
That this is just, yeah, my team is just pretty great. And the third one is more on a personal level, because I just came back from a ski trip, and I'm not a regular skier, but I made it 3 days to ski in the Austrian Alps. I only hugged a couple of trees. I think I only ran into one of my colleagues once, but I really overcame my fear of going down a slope, like a little bit more steep than I would have preferred. But I made it, and I am very proud of that at the moment.
Brilliant. Overcoming fear, trying new things. That's
Yes.
definitely great. One of the great things to accomplish. Brilliant. I think that is a three. I think those three things kind of complement the kind of the topics we've discussed about the personal side, but also the culture that you seem to have nurtured with your team, and the kind of what you have achieved so far at Alteos. So I want now to give it to you the opportunity to leave to my next guest a question. What question would you like to leave to my next guest?
Perhaps, is there anything you would have done differently in the past month?
In the past month.
Like, I leave this up to you, but is there a particular situation where you think now in a retrospective way that you could have done things differently?
Brilliant. Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, that kind of is an open-ended question, gives time to reflect, and invite people to reflect on it as well. These are the great aspect of asking these questions and giving each guest the opportunity to contribute as well. Dominique, it's been a pleasure chatting with you and getting to know the ambitions and the kind of your core beliefs and what the work you have been doing to drive positive impact in the cycling industry, to bring more women to the cycling industry, and also the kind of revealing as well a little bit kind of how that has been combined with your personal trajectory. So thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much. Also, thank you to you. Like, I know I already told you, but this was my first podcast, so please be gentle with me. And thank you for also creating such a comfortable environment to talk about stuff. I really enjoyed it.
If this conversation got you thinking about how cycling can shape your mindset, your leadership, or your everyday choices, do me a favor and share it to your friends who might resonate with. And hey, make sure to follow Ride Success wherever you listen to your podcasts, so you never miss a story and moments like this. Thanks for being here today with me. And until next time, keep riding, keep growing, and keep making your version of success a little bit more your own.